Welcome back to another episode of the Huxley Morton Podcast, the show where each week I'm speaking to pharma, healthcare, biotech, company owners and industry leaders sharing their stories of both personal and professional growth. This week I'm joined by Simon Crowe of Clindox. Simon, you and I have had quite a good chat off air previously, but I've given you a little introduction there. Please do us all a favour and give us a better introduction and a quick overview as to who you guys are at Clindox.
Super, thanks very much, James, and thanks for inviting me along to the podcast. Really appreciate that. So I'm the CEO of Clindox, and I came to Clindox last summer. Through a consulting exercise to reset their strategy and their direction, which we can talk a little bit more about later on today. And in parallel to Clindox, I run my own business, Blue Marlin Data. It's fair to say that Clindox is my principal focus at this moment and represents a really interesting proposition. So I come to that with 30 years in business and 20 plus years now in life sciences, in clinical research. So looking forward to today's session and helping people to learn a little bit more about our story, my story.
Massively so. Well, in terms of Clindox, in terms of the business, you mentioned there that you joined fairly recently and helped with various bits of restructuring. But as far as I'm aware, the company originally started back in 2013. So just talk us about the restructuring and what the focus is for you guys in terms of what you're trying to achieve and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. A quick overview of what you do as a business right now.
Yeah, sure. So you're right. We started out in 2013. The business actually went through quite a significant restructure in 2018. As the original owners, or one of the original owners and founders, left the business, and there was a change in structure around that. And then we also took that opportunity to move our R&D and our customer success team out to India, in Pune, and that was from Ireland originally. To take advantage of the cost base there, but also the expertise of the people in that region, where you get very, very high quality, but literally at a tenth of the price that you would pay in this part of the world. So that was an interesting sort of junction in time. And then from that point in 2018, the current owner started to bring on board experienced people from the industry to help shape the future of Clindox. But if we think about today we're a company of 25 people, 26 people, and 20 of those are in Pune, in India.
Wow.
And there we do our research and development for the product, which is a SaaS-based clinical research, e-clinical software solution for collecting data in clinical trials. And we also do a lot of our delivery, onboarding of customers who want to use our products through our customer success team in India. And we have a sales marketing function there, quality assurance and finance.
Sure.
And then here in Europe, we have the owner, we have a couple of investors, and we have our executive commercial team. So myself, I'm located in Ireland. I'm in the south of Ireland, and we then have a commercial director who's in the UK and a head of global sales who spends his time between the UK, mainland London, and a nice place in Northern Ireland. So with that structure, what we're doing is we're delivering to our customers a SaaS-based e-clinical solution, and within that we have electronic data capture, we have coding capabilities, randomization, and ePro tools.
EDC side of things, you guys are the developer of the CRF Web EDC application that is, I guess, helping to change the way that CROs, med device companies, I guess just work with all of their clinical data as far as I understand.
That's absolutely right. I mean, that's it in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And, part of the work that I've done with Clindox is to refocus our attentions. The life science sector is pretty broad. You've got the verticals of pharma, biotech, medical device, diagnostics,
Mm-hmm.
nutraceuticals, and animal health. So those are and those represent globally a huge space. And the pharma biotech space is pretty much saturated now with e-clinical vendors at all levels, from enterprise through mid-size down to SMEs.
Yeah.
So it's not a great place for a young, small company like ours to play. And some of the other sectors, like animal health, nutraceuticals, academia is another space. There are dynamics there that also mean it's commercially it's not as attractive. There is attraction there, but it's not as attractive. So for us, we're starting to sharpen our focus every day towards the medical device sector. We still have customers in other areas, and we certainly can do work for customers from the other verticals. But day to day, we're looking to continue to sort of fine tune, sharpen our offering for the medical device sector.
Sure. No, look, that makes sense. I think, as you and I spoke about previously, when you're in the world of, business and predominantly sales, it's better to find your focus and concentrate on that, because you try and do too much and you just end up spreading yourself too thin and none of it gets done particularly well.
Yes.
So look, massively agree with that kind of strategy. And that's, a great overview as to what you guys are doing, where people are based at the moment. But look, before we go further and delve into how you're getting on and plans for the future, etc., let's have a quick rewind as to how you first got into the industry. So you said, I think it was 30 years in business, 20 years in the world of life sciences. But I know from our conversations that wasn't, I guess, the original plan coming out of sort of school and college and things. So how did you first get into the industry? What was your background and when you started out in business, Simon?
Well, I can tell you I have a confession. Purely by mistake is the short answer.
You're not. You know what? You're not the only one.
so I actually I did a degree in maritime studies at college. I was a keen sailor, strong interest in the sea, and so that seemed a good idea at the time. But when I left, I wasn't convinced it was what I wanted to do. So my first role was actually selling chewing gum to dentists for Wrigley's. That was my first proper job. And then I moved back
from sailing to selling chewing gum.
Exactly. So not a logical leap, but it was a good foundation in sales, actually. And Wrigley's very professional in training me up.
Yeah.
And from there I moved.
Was that in Europe? Because obviously Wrigley's is a US based company, which is where a lot of kind of our audience and our network are based. But you were selling that UK wide or European wide?
Just in UK. In fact, my sales territory ran from Lincoln in the UK down to Cardiff in Wales, and took in places like Birmingham, Wolverhampton. And I can safely say that anyone that wants to reach out to me and learn a bit more of some of the stories, they're very welcome to do so. I was young and impressionable, and I got an opportunity then to move to the sailing industry, which is a real passion of mine. And I ran the sales office for one of the leading clothing brands for a while, and then I went out on the road for them. And then after that, I started to drift towards the IT sector.
So you worked for the value-added
reseller channel in the enterprise resourcing planning space. So this was computer systems to manage sales orders, work orders into the manufacturing process, and onwards in terms of delivery and service. And I sold a sort of a mid-market solution there for a long time. And through that and the interest in the computing, I then moved over to around 2000, I moved over to a B2B website design company and internet application developer. But they were doing fairly generic stuff. And they were doing some work with Stafford Miller, which later I think became part of GSK. And that was to do electronic data capture. So they developed an application suite to build out EDC, ECRFs.
That's how the dots kind of aligned, looking back at that now then.
Exactly. And through that experience, although there were, again, some good stories around that particular company, I started to build out a network in that space. I started to build more and more of an interest in that space. And I seemed to fit very well into that world. And so from there, I moved.
What was it that you think perhaps enabled you to fit well into that world at that time? Was there anything that you can remember that you thought, yeah, actually, this is a good fit for me? Because I guess a lot of our listeners are often aspiring clinical research professionals may not necessarily know what is their fit yet. What was it for yourself that made you think, okay, this could be something here?
Well, I found it intellectually challenging, and for me that's important. I like to try and stretch the mind. I found the people very engaging, very professional. And what I really liked about it was that there was a truly global scope to the opportunity.
Definitely.
It wasn't just about a piece of the UK or maybe even a piece of Europe. It truly is a global industry, and you can move around, as I've since discovered, you can move around the industry and move to different parts and keep it fresh very easily. In the global life sciences and global clinical trial space, and with a technology bent to it. So that's what excited me and kept me really interested. And I loved the IT side of it. It was at year 2000, and everyone was starting to talk about the internet.com boom, and it almost became the only conversation in town. And now actually I find, after 20 odd years in this industry, we're at a new junction point where there's equal amounts of excitement, but this time it's not a general dot-com boom excitement. It's healthcare and IT, of which life sciences and IT sits in that.
So much space. Innovation at the moment, isn't there? It's
unreal.
Unreal.
It's unreal. Yeah. So I having sort of been bitten by the bug, I then moved into the CRO space for a while. I worked with PPD, and then onwards to a couple of other CROs. But I came back to technology in 2016 with metadata. And then there I looked after their sort of CRO community across Europe, Middle East, Russia, India, and Africa.
Yeah, wow.
And then onwards to Medrio, Castor, and all the time building up experiences, building up knowledge of the market, building up a contact network, and understanding some of the strange dynamics of this marketplace. It's not obvious to many people. It still doesn't have a solid structure for tech sales like the one that I experienced in the ERP space. There, the concept of a value-added reseller was absolutely nailed to the floor.
Yeah.
And it was easy for people to understand, and you knew where they sat against, the developers of the software and the hardware systems and the networking infrastructures. In the life science sector, within clinical trials, the CRO community, in essence, will become the value-added reseller network for tech companies as we transition away from people doing the work to automating. It's just that, not all of the CRO community, of which there's about 1,600 companies worldwide, perhaps get that or even want to subscribe to it at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting that IQVIA, the largest one of all of them, is actually leading the thinking on that. They've always done that since they started up life back in 1982. But now, when they announced their merger, Quintile's merger with IMS, that really shook a lot of the CRO community, and particularly the bigger players.
Yeah.
We have to get our act together in a different way now and turn people into technologists.
Yeah.
And data scientists.
It's moving that way more and more, and I think it will only continue throughout. I guess the market, whether you're big, small, mid-sized, emerging startups, I think everyone kind of needs to jump on board, or just risk getting left behind.
100%, and it's and that's where in terms of Clindox's position, I'm fascinated because our broader ambition is not to be an EDC vendor. That's not what we call ourselves internally these days.
Mm-hmm.
And as time goes forward, we'll start to.
What is the label then that you give yourselves? If it was to be a snapshot label that you give yourselves at Clindox, what would you sort of define that as?
Well, we want to move to being a data science solutions provider for the medical device sector.
Perfect. And as I said earlier, that focus, that niche or niche, however you want to pronounce it, is what where you're looking to position yourself. And positioning is everything these days. So yeah, it's good that you guys have got that locked in. You've got a clear vision, which we will certainly come on to. But for you guys and yourself individually, after those roles that you had, and finding your feet in the market and somewhere where you felt that you belonged, at what point was it that you got approached by Clindox? How did that come about? How did you end up being their CRO? Because I was quite interested by this, but again, it was almost a little bit by kind of chance coincidence. But I'll let you explain.
Life works like that. You get to know that as time goes on, and in fact, in the period of time that I was working with Medidata, Medrio, and then Caster, I was getting back into and more in tune with the market. And when particularly I spent the time at Medrio and Caster, these companies were tackling the SME market and the mid-sized enterprises, but not the really huge companies generally. and so from my Medidata days, I came across a new set of peers, new competitors. And within that space and promoting the Medrio and then the Caster solutions to the life science companies, I started to come across companies like Clindox and, for that matter, Clindox. And so, and I've always been very open in nature. So I like the competition across the business, but I try and help all people, and even at times the competitors, to compete. Because with healthy competition, we all prosper. So in that period, I came across the guys at Clindox, and we just got chatting. And they explained to me about the process they'd been through of restructuring the business, and now, really looking at a clean sheet in terms of what should we do. We have this lovely software product, which seems to be, at least comparable to our immediate peers in the marketplace, evidenced by, a good number of customers who are buying on a repeat basis. We have the beginnings of a customer team, and we have, a lot of other pieces of the foundation for Clindox, to prepare us for growth. And so we were talking about these types of things. I was talking about the dynamics in the market, the opportunity for growth, the position the market's in, but the variance across the different verticals. And they liked it, So I think my initial conversation was with Paul McCartan, who's the global head of sales. He then introduced me to Mike Huxley, who's the commercial director. And then the pair of them introduced me to Tom Beaufoy, who's the founder and owner of Clindox. And very quickly, each time at each stage, we developed a quick rapport. And ultimately, I was then introduced to Mayura and Prashant Kasot, who Mayura looks after our customer success team and provides an umbrella over some of the other business functions in India. And Prash is our CIO. And together as a team, we absolutely clicked. I mean, they're an absolute pleasure to deal with, to work alongside.
Just what you want.
And sorry?
Just what you want, isn't it?
Oh, I mean, you know, I've worked in all sorts of different setups and for lots of different types of characters throughout my career. I can only think of a couple of occasions where it's absolutely completely gelled together. On quite a few occasions, you know, there have been sort of issues in one direction or another, which perhaps cause you to decide to move on and do a different project.
Yeah.
But here, I was made very welcome. And when I went to embark on the consulting project to really take their business apart and look at the best way we could reconstitute it to drive forward and take advantage of the opportunity that exists out there. Again, there was an openness and a willingness to cooperate, which, you know, I've only come across on a few occasions in my career. And that really convinced me that this could be a really successful project. So we all worked hard together, and lots of other members of the team as well got involved. But we all worked hard together last summer, and came out with this 10-year plan, and then a 3-year plan, and then a 1-year plan. And currently we're working through the first year's plan, so for 2021, and already we're close to doubling our turnover, our revenue.
But say, yeah, how's it going? You know, the impacts of the virus, and just the market in general, because there's not only you guys that are innovating, everyone else will be innovating as well. So yeah, how are things going for you guys at the moment? It sounds well by the comments there.
It is well, but you know, I think your audience probably would appreciate some candor as well. It's been very interesting. So in the specific context of COVID-19, on a personal note, COVID-19 has been extremely good to me. So it allowed me to set up my own consulting business, Blue Marlin Data, and it allowed me to participate and then engage with the team at Clindox and build out a plan which everyone sort of bought into and is now executing. And for me, that's been incredibly positive and rewarding. I can't tell you.
I bet. And
so on a personal note, it's been very, very good. On a business note, it's been incredibly challenging. So as I was coming into the business, they were experiencing, of course, the first bite of the COVID pandemic last summer, moving into the autumn. But there was enough momentum in the business to carry us through. We undertook a range of different initiatives to tighten up the way that we did business, the way that we deliver our business and our solutions. And that also helped to start to insulate us from risk. And that's been successfully carried on through into the first quarter of this year. But in April, we then experienced this new second wave in India.
I was going to perhaps drill into that, because with a lot of your staff based over there, and it's everywhere in the news about India, the situation at the moment, just how much of that has been a challenge, and how you've dealt with it, just on a professional note, but also personally as well.
Well, I can tell you that first of all, my heart goes out to the Indian people. To observe what's going on there from a distance, but to have a strong connection with a group of people and their families in India at this very moment in time.
Yeah.
is quite challenging. They're in a very, very difficult position. So what we've tried to do is we've tried to be as compassionate in their situation as we can, but also to continue to try and drive our initiatives. But with the current situation, even just a couple of weeks ago, we had a situation where a large number of our staff were either COVID positive or had a number of members of their family as COVID positive. And we had to put on.
They're remote at the moment, right?
They are working remotely.
They're not in an office, or?
Yeah, so we have an office in Pune, but each time that the COVID pandemic has sort of struck, we've moved to a remote working model. And that worked very well for us last year, Q4 particularly. And the team responded beautifully to collaborating like that. And in fact, it was almost seamless. We didn't notice we were able to push our business along, deliver customer projects.
Yeah.
There was very little disruption at all. This time around, what we've learned is that even when the staff are sent home and work from home, there is equal amount of risk as they are to working in an office.
Wow.
Which is an interesting dynamic, I can tell you.
Yeah.
So that has meant that.
Why do you think that is, out of interest, Simon? I'm just wondering, because if they're at home like what we have been, I guess, in the UK, or for our audience in the States, you're isolated to an extent. So have they given you a bit of an insight as to the additional challenges that they've faced, or?
Oh yes,
I mean, insight. I'm interested to follow this, around the world from my side of things, but.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it's very practical things. So a lot of our colleagues would be living in sort of apartment blocks or complexes. So there's a lot of contact, a lot of people.
I see.
And India, there's a lot of paperwork as well that goes with everything. So a lot of bureaucracy to tackle around maintaining safety or achieving safety.
Yeah.
Challenges with things like Wi-Fi. So we take it for granted, relatively speaking, that we can have a nice Zoom meeting. It's totally uninterrupted.
Sometimes.
Exactly. And but they're facing things like power outages. So there's a lot of challenges like that. And then there's some very personal stories, probably not appropriate to share on the podcast today, but there have been one or two very, very sad situations for our staff. Thankfully, none of our staff have got into really big problems, but close family members have, and so it really touches the day-to-day working of the business. And what I admire incredibly about our team in India is their resilience. They are amazing, I can't tell you. So there's not a single complaint about their situation.
Wow.
And what I often have to do in my management meetings is ask them to stop working so damn hard.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to see commitment from people to provide solutions to help in the world of healthcare, and you wanted to see people working in quite adverse conditions and still be so tough and resilient and productive, then you only have to go and visit the Clindox team in Pune. It's quite incredible. And so, after
amazing to hear.
Yeah, so after a situation a couple of weeks ago where we had to put our contingency plan on standby. So we have, of course, we have to be responsible in that way as a business. So we have a contingency plan we can execute if needs be. We put it on standby. I can say, thankfully that now we're back out of that. 99% of our staff are all healthy, happy, and working hard. And we just have a couple of people that are poorly at the moment, but they're not too poorly. So we're in really good shape. And like I say, we have a contingency plan in case it does deteriorate, to a very critical level. But I can tell you, doing all of that remotely. So one of the strangest things is I've been CEO now of the business since December of last year, and I've been engaged with the business since June of last year. I've not actually had a chance to visit our Pune office yet, of course. In fact, I've done most of my work from this desk. And that in its own right has been a challenge of communication. One of the things that exists is, there is a cultural difference between India and Europeans.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we've needed to learn to do as a management team is factor that in, so that they're happy and they're doing the work that they can do, and we're happy and we're doing the work we can do. And that's been quite interesting to work upon when you don't have the opportunity to go and shake their hand and give them a hug and say, Jesus, lads,
Yeah. Well done. I can't believe you're still working at this capacity. Has that been, I always ask people that come on the show, perhaps the biggest things that they've learned about themselves over the past 18 months. Would you say that is probably right up there for yourself, as been how managing these guys remotely, and the difference in culture when you've not, as you say, sort of met them face to face, shook their hands, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really interesting journey in that respect, and to be able to use digital tools actually as a strong foundation for making changes in the business that we needed to make quite quickly to pull the risk in and allow us to continue even against the COVID challenges, and to learn about people's willingness and interest to follow a good, focused and concise plan. I think a lot of people sometimes suffer from too many plans and too many changes to the plans. We're as a team are really trying to keep the plan singular and focused and easy to understand and easy to execute upon, and that's proving really successful.
Well, I'm a big believer in that. If when certainly as a CEO or a leader, manager, whoever you are in a business, if you've got people that fall under your control and you're having to lead, you want everyone to buy into that same vision, don't you? And once you've got that and that sense of unity, then you kind of just get that mentality of, look, it's us against the world. We can do this, and that is where, no doubt your guys over in India who have been facing these adverse conditions have continued to perform, even despite your efforts to try and get them to calm down a little bit.
Well, I love it. I mean, that's also what I'm learning on a personal note is, if you have got a good plan in place, everyone's signed up to it and understands it and likes it, it's amazing what people will do off their own volition. In that sense, I'm very, very proud of the Clindox team and how they're working. And it means also that in my particular role, I can still, even though these are challenging times, I can still take one or two steps back and think about, the next piece of navigation we need to do. How do we need to get through all of this and get to the next step or next place we want to get to? And so that's really helpful as well. And
what is that? What are your plans? Both personally and for Clindox moving forward as we sort of move through 2021, as the world of pharma and biotech emerges and perhaps innovates even more. You mentioned the 10-year plan, the 3-year plan, the 1-year plan. What's the next kind of 6 to 12 months looking like for you guys? Is it going to be, I guess, certainly the European team? I know from next Monday it is return to offices, as the government are saying. Is that the plan? I mean, what's in store for you guys?
So we're at a stage now where we're busting to grow. So So we've started a process in recent weeks to look at the next round of raising finance. And that first round will be about rounding off what I call the foundation of the business. So rounding out on our approach to delivering our solutions, to building our solutions, to maintaining quality across the business, to running the administrative functions in the background, the finances, etc. So we've still got some work to do around that. And
consolidating what you've got, making sure it's a solid base to build from.
Yeah, exactly, a solid foundation. And we're making great progress, but the COVID situation in India has held us back a little bit, I would say, to the extent that we've, one of the things that we had to do as we learned about the situation in April was to redirect the Indian sales team to selling in Europe, because there was no selling being done in India, I can tell you.
Yeah.
So we had to make some tweaks and changes like that. But the intention is to raise a small amount of finance, round off the foundation, and then once the foundation is rounded off, is then to raise a larger amount of finance, probably our first series round, so Series A.
Yeah.
And that will be to start the process of accelerating our growth into the medical device space. And we'll use that to fuel sales and marketing, first and foremost, because we have a fantastic product already. We have a great mechanism for delivering it. It's just that not enough people know about it at the moment. So that's number one on the list. But exactly, but we have a whole host of plans to evolve both the product and the delivery mechanism as rapidly as we can, so that we can really provide medical device companies with a holistic digital mechanism for managing their compliance activities. So there are lots of really great solutions out there to help them manage their sales forces, their marketing and distribution activities, their manufacturing, even some elements of their R&D processes, finance, materials, all these kinds of things, all the aspects of these businesses. But the one piece that is still, would you believe, from time to time, we find people still working on paper. If there's one piece that's been neglected in medical device companies up and down, from SMEs up to the large enterprises, global enterprises, it's how they have digitized and tackled the compliance piece. So obtaining the licenses for their products and then maintaining those licenses, in an ever-changing regulatory environment. So, from that,
it sounds like there's a bit of a gap in the market there, and you guys are filling it exceptionally well, or certainly and plan to do so on a much grander scale by the sounds of things.
Exactly. I mean, there are companies that do some elements of it, but there's quite a few companies sort of nipping around the edges of it. And what we see, would be valuable to the medical device sector is to bring that together, bring it together in a platform, bring together the services that can deliver that platform, help them transition to more of a digital mode of operating. And within that, there you start to get that notion of data sciences. So if we can help them to digitize that space and start to accumulate data around this aspect of their business, then that ripples into their plans for analytics downstream, and then driving through new scientific, technical, and operational innovation. So, we want to be part of that process. We want to be a significant component within their engine or within their machine.
It sounds like there's a good synergy there. So I'm sure that it will go well. I mean, headcount wise, at the moment, you mentioned you're kind of 25 of you guys. To give us an idea of the pace at which you're looking to scale, where are you looking to be? Say, if we looked at like this time next year, how many people are you targeting to have on board and by that time?
Well, we at this stage, in 2021, we'll double our revenues. Our goals are a bit more ambitious, but I think given some of the challenges, that the world is throwing at us, if we double our revenues, that's pretty awesome. And we'll probably add another 5 people to the business. So we'll probably finish this year with about 30 people in the business. I would be disappointed if we didn't double the workforce in 2022.
Wow.
And continue that going forward. At the moment, we're working with, I think, 20 customers across India, Israel, and Europe. And if we look at the European medical device sector, there's 27,000 companies. So our market share is quite small at the moment.
Yeah. And I guess a lot of our audience is based in the US, and there'll be directors at med device companies that perhaps tune in. Is the US an area that you also happy to cover, or is the focus initially stay in Europe and then expand out further down the line?
Yeah, so certainly the US is on our radar, as are APAC countries as well. But our belief at Clindox is bite off what you can chew.
Smart move.
And exactly. So and we know that to go to the US market or to go to the Chinese market or Japanese market, for example, would need significant funding and resource, and leading to significant resources, people, so that we can set up a structure for things like help desk support. Yeah. So that we can nuance on language or regulations for that particular market. So that we can put in place an expert sales and marketing team, to penetrate the market, so that we can put in customer support people that can really do a great job for that particular market. And so part of our plans as we sort of grow into that world of being the data science player for the medical device industry globally, will be to take each market chunk and look at it, develop a go-to-market strategy, make sure that we're well funded around that strategy, and then execute.
Amazing.
What I've seen in my role over the years is that there have been a lot of very interesting startups in this space, but they've not taken that level of sort of commercial view on how to expand.
Yeah,
so quite often
it sounds incredible. It sounds like you've massively got your head screwed on. You know what you're doing. You've got a plan, which is, it's not to do it all at once, because that way it just falls flat. It's a kind of master the basics and then take that, adapt to the different markets and the different nuances each time. And over time, before you know it, you'll be achieving that 10-year plan by the sounds of things. I mean, that's kind of how I see it. It's just a very sensible plan, and without that long-term plan, you're never going to hit it. So it's great to hear that you have it mapped out. It's just a case of executing now.
Well, that's the key. That's the key. The piece that entertains us on a daily basis.
Indeed. Well, look, Simon, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, hearing the plans for Clindox and for the business. I'm sure that it's going to go well. I'll certainly be sort of tuning in to keep an eye on how you're getting on, and no doubt we'll keep in touch. But outside of, I guess, the world of pharma, biotech and things, as I said, Monday for myself in London, indoor restaurants and things will be opening up. What are you looking forward to post lockdown over in Ireland? I know it's been pretty strict, but I know you've got your 3 boys, you're into your sailing, you like tinkering with cars. What are you looking forward to outside of the world of work?
Well, the piece I miss the most, and I think probably most people are going to echo this, is to go for a pint on a Sunday and have a meal, and relax and just enjoy friends or family's company.
Yeah.
That piece has been ripped away from us and held back by the governments for, well over a year now. And that's the piece that I really, really look forward to. Now, I'm enjoying a little bit of sailing. I'm enjoying, tinkering with my cars in the backyard. And I'm enjoying teaching my daughter to drive, I think. And my middle son is coming up to learn soon. And we can kind of do those things now under the current regulations that the Irish government has imposed. I think the other thing is to be able to travel for business. I'd love to get out and see my colleagues and now friends in Clindox in Pune. These people deserve attention because they've certainly, through, as I've explained, through thick and thin, they've performed, and I would like to go and personally thank them for that. But then encourage them to address some of the initiatives that they've been slacking on,
Well, it all sounds great, and look, I think your plans on the personal front almost mirror that, in terms of your thought process on the business front. It's about simplicity, doing the basics, and that is the key to life and success in general, I think. So
absolutely.
I think it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. So thanks again for joining us. And look, for anyone that wants to reach out to you, I'm assuming that I'll share links to your website, but is there sort of anything else that you'd like to add before we let you get off to enjoy the rest of your day?
I'd like to thank you, James. I think this is a really super initiative that you've developed. And, I've enjoyed many of the other podcasts that you've published. It's a really interesting resource for people like me and my executive management team and other people in the business to get the perspective of different leaders across the industry and what their experience is, both at a personal and at a commercial and a business level. So I really appreciate that. And, if people have found what I've been talking about interesting, and they want to learn a little bit more, it's really easy. It's simon.crowe@clindox.com. They can ping me and you'll find me an easy guy to hook up with and spend a few minutes chatting about whatever topic you want to talk about. But, I'm not one of those people that gets stuck in too many back-to-back meetings. I like to keep focused on the priorities but also give time where people are interested to spend it.
Definitely. Well, look, great mentality. Fantastic having you on the show as a guest. Look, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks very much, James, and you enjoy the rest of your day too.
Cheers.